Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're having a look at a new Japanese ground vehicle that is coming into the game. It is the RCVP. This is a new light vehicle that is coming in as a squadron vehicle, surprisingly, and it's going to be at rank 7 for the Japanese. I believe it's the first ground squadron vehicle that the Japanese have access to, and since it's a rank 7, it's going to be able to research rank 8, 7, and 6 efficiently, but really nothing else, so that kind of sucks. At 9.7 though, it can be run with the Type 16, which is really fun, and also ran with the Type 93, which is not so fun, but at least it's fun to race with. The RCVP has access to a 30mm Bushmaster 2 Mark 44. This is not a fantastic cannon, but it gets the job done if you are dealing with either MBTs from the side or if you're dealing with other light vehicles. The biggest problem with it is the punching power of it is okay, but the fire rate isn't as good as other vehicles that you'll find. So being able to try and take out kind of like AA or, you know, helicopters and stuff like that can be a little bit taxing, and also in straight fire rates against other vehicles that are more rapid fire, it feels like you're not outputting as much damage as them, which kind of sucks. Round-wise, though, for the gun, it does have access to the MK258. This pens over 100mm and also is an APF SDS, so it'll have very good post-penetration damage, so if you do catch stuff from the side, you'll have a fantastic time. It has an LWSLR, which is really good for the vehicle. It's nice when you're a light vehicle and you know when somebody is actually seeing you. And then also it has thermals, so you'll be able to see into next week, since Japan has very good thermals on these types of vehicles. You can see it is a 5-man crew. Usually this type of vehicle would only be a 3-man, but since you have these two back here, which are on this FCS system or computer system in the back, you'll be able to, even if you get shot through the turret, you'll be able to recoup both of these into this area quite easily. It also has a coaxial 7.62 that you can use to mark stuff and maybe take on other things too. The targeting speed on the gun is not as good as a lot of other vehicles around, but it's still fine for what you need it for. And also the reload rate on the gun isn't great either, but the magazine size is good as well. So once again, you don't have to worry about it. You may also see this piece, the electronic equipment, which is sat over here, and a commander optics which is attached to it. This vehicle has something that not many other vehicles in the game have, but it is a pretty cool addition to it, and it is the fact that it can boop up and down its commander optic. This means that you can actually sit it behind a rock or sit it behind a hill, and you can just boop upwards and use it to scout vehicles, because, you know, that's something that you can do with the commander sight. It also has commander controls, so you can technically sit behind a hill and use this to fire over the hill while you're set up there. You can see here, this is how far it goes, then it goes down here, so you can basically just sit it down something and scout over it and make sure that you don't get hit. The only problem with doing this is you can still kind of get overpressured by stuff, and also it means that people know where you are, so they're going to keep artillerying you over and over and over again until, you know, you end up dying. So this is a light-wheeled vehicle. It is 8-wheeled at the end of the day. It does have a 570 horsepower engine, which means that it can motor forwards and has decent reverse too, which is quite good. It does also have these little pockets of armor on the inside, which may save you against stuff, but let's be honest, it'll more likely just set off rounds and mean that it'll do more damage to you. And the outer layer, it's 20mm of composite screen, right? Like, it's not going to be something that's going to be stopping anything. So this vehicle will be one where you'll have to see the enemy first, otherwise you will just die. You don't have a lot of empty space in this vehicle. This is something that Gaijin have been trying to fix, and a lot of the newer vehicles that they're actually adding more stuff internally to them, such as this kind of like computer system, and also this radio station and the extra ammo here, just to make it so when somebody penetrates you, it actually does something to you, instead of in a sense, not doing anything, and then this being able to turn and annihilate. Like, back in the day, even like a year ago, if this thing came out, this area would be an area where you shoot, nothing would happen. There's this whole bottom area where if you shoot, nothing would happen. This whole area here, nothing would happen. And yeah, it's just kind of nuts. Nowadays, if you take damage, you will actually feel it, which is pretty interesting. You start off with the default APDS, which is fine, but still not great. At 9.7, there will be a lot of times where you face stuff like Soviet vehicles, for example, but also other vehicles where you won't be able to like penetrate them from the front, and it'll be very annoying that is the case. And usually at this BR, or at least at 10.0, you normally have like a 80 gem option, whether it's like a TOW-A or a TOW-B or something like that as a secondary, but this is just sat with its 30mm, and that's it. So that could probably get a little bit frustrating for people, especially if they're fighting stuff mainly from the front. But for me, it's still nice to see this type of vehicle. These are the types of vehicle I enjoy the most in War Thunder, the light, highly mobile ones. We're getting like this kind of new wave over the last few years of these huge AFV, IFV light vehicles. You know, stuff like, of course, not just the Puma, but, you know, the Vilcas, and anything that's based around those kind of like 8-wheeled vehicles. This one is no different, even though this vehicle is incredibly modern when it comes to the Japanese forces, way more modern than pretty much all of those ones. But you can see the thermals here, very good. I think they're probably either Gen 2 or Gen 3. It's hard to tell for me since I'm pretty much blind. And one of the other parts that is kind of weird about the vehicle, as I said, is the targeting speed. Look at how slow the turret is. And usually this isn't a terrible thing at this BR, because, you know, you can usually motor around the side, but since this thing is such a big vehicle, it's going to take you a little bit of time to lumber around and deal with the targets that are in front of you. So the targeting speed I wish was a little bit better on it. The smoke grenades are nice, obviously, to reposition. The reverse is nice to reposition too. But yeah, you're going to have to, against a lot of targets, which if you compare this to the Puma, for example, the Puma has a lot higher targeting speed than this. The other part is it doesn't really have any secondary uses, so it does have the lock-on that you can see here, the track, but you don't have the ahead ammunition, you don't have HEVT or anything like that, so you're going to have to hit it with standard AP, which, you know, against something like a MiG is not that hard to do, but since this thing's at 9.7, it's going to be facing supersonic stuff and facing them in quite an aggressive situation, so not going to be easy to do, especially with this targeting speed. Mainly that'll be useful against helicopters that have either first spawned or are kind of loitering around the place using their ATGMs instead of planes that are about. So apart from the targeting speed, everything else about this vehicle is looking really good. My guess is they will improve the targeting speed to keep it up with a lot of other vehicles that are around, and it would be nice to have an additional option, whether it's in a multi-role with something like HEVT or whether it's like with an ATGM, but this vehicle will still be fine. Like, it will still do well with what it needs to do. It just kind of sucks that you are limited to this gun, which I've used so many times on so many different vehicles and had that experience where facing others and you just can't do too much to them from the front, and you end up just kind of sat there, you know, trying your best to get through them. Like you can see here with like this T64, right? Like, you can kill the driver, but the post-pen after that's pretty rough, and then you have to keep spamming the breach and spamming the tracks and doing all these things to try and stop it. And that just a lot of the time just doesn't work because they get the shot off before you're able to do all these things. And that is the problem with a vehicle like this. It means that, you know, you don't have that option to, you know, just kind of annihilate them as you go. Instead, what you have to do is you have to take them apart piecemeal, scout, and then hope that your allies can take them out. I'm looking forward to this one though. Out of the 3 squadron vehicles that are about, this one to me is the most interesting out of the 3 that are getting added in this update. And hopefully it's one of the most interesting for you, because all 3 of them are looking pretty spicy, to be honest, for different reasons. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.